Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchising. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another great episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich, and today, oh my goodness, today is going to be an amazing episode. As everybody knows, I have franchise founders and franchisees, and I have resources for you as well that help you with all kinds of things. And today is one of the most amazing resources and a good friend of mine. And I have a list. I had to keep notes next to me. So he's an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, best-selling author, now a film producer, transformational life coach, abundance activator, more on that later, and podcast host. Welcome to the show, my good friend, Dan Mangena.
Woo!
What?
Mr. Lance.
Dan, it is so exciting to have you here. You're gonna certainly put out that value, so to speak, so people understand how to be their own boss and all that. But let's start with the most important, because we could talk for 5 hours. I could listen to you for 5 hours or more. What's your backstory, Dan? Let's go way back.
Way back into time. So my accent is not Australian. I'm from East London in the UK. I currently live in Cabo, Mexico. I'm looking at the Sea of Cortez right now out my office window.
Such a rough life, Dan. Such a rough life.
Somebody's got to do it. But yeah, I've been in Mexico for about 4.5 years now. I came to Cabo for 3 days and stayed. And that was it. I stayed. And I was on a journey at the time of coming here where I call it my days of being a happy hobo. And I'd left the UK in May. I left the UK in May of 2018 because earlier that year, I made the choice to close down my 7-figure consulting company to share some work that I had to share with the world. And it's an invitation that I've been receiving for a little while leading up to that. It's funny you say about being your own boss. I've actually only had 2 jobs in my life. I worked in a cinema when I was about 15. I met my best friends, Nathan and Jamie. I did it because it was fun and I needed something to do that summer. But I also worked a job when I was building up my last business. I was working in a call center from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock in the evening, doing the same brain-numbing Volkswagen dealership customer service call. It's a 7-minute call that I was doing over and over again for minimum wage. And I did that while I built up my business. And other than that, I've always worked for myself. I had my first big company when I was 19. Unfortunately, that failed and I lost a couple of £1 million. I then went off and did another business, and then I was robbed of a couple £1 million again. And I was able to build up another successful business, which is the one I walked away from to do what I do now. And now in the personal development field, we do pretty well in the personal development field. And of course, there's other entrepreneurial exploits, filmmaking, and other really cool stuff. But yeah, I understand entrepreneurship because it's pretty much all I've ever done. I'd actually struggle to understand the corporate world. Like I'd probably need to get some coaching to go and do that. But I've seen ups, I've seen downs, I've seen highs, I've seen lows, I've seen wins, I've seen failures, lessons, and all the things. And really grateful that now I get to support people with the mindset, with the emotional resilience, and also with the kind of strategies that can empower them to have more success in their life too.
Dan, what was the inspiration for all of this? Like at what point, okay, you had a couple of failed businesses. There are people out there that have 35 failed businesses before they see success. and you're certainly not an old guy in the beginning, to begin with. But what was your original inspiration? We're going to dive deep here. There's a lot of stuff that you're doing for people. You've sent me a ton of referrals, several of which have invested in franchises. They were ready. You got them warmed up for me. You were there, the cheerleader that got them on the field, so to speak.
Well, I mean, one of the great things about good humans like you is for me, reputation capital, relationship capital are 2 of the most important capital types in the world. I think they're more important than money, because if you've got a good name, then you're never going to run out of opportunities. One of my mentors, in fact, told me the story that he lost everything, was living on a couch. Within a year and a half, he was a multimillionaire again. And I asked him how. He said, it's relationships, Dan, relationships. If people know you and trust you, then you're always going to be okay. And so I feel confident knowing that you're going to look after my people, you're going to lead them in the right path, and that they're going to find success with you. And so I will always put people in your good hands as far as I'm concerned.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I didn't expect the testimonial right now that quickly.
It's all right. I'll send you the invoice later. No, but,
Please do.
No, but inspiration. The funny thing is that when it comes down to the personal development side of things, like the being of service side, a lot of people come to do this because they're like, oh, I was in corporate and my soul was empty and I needed to find my purpose. I was living my best life, dude. Like I was living my best life. I was flying first class to go and hang out with my friends in Dubai and New York, and I had a lovely home in North London, and I was doing good numbers, and I was working out and doing the dating thing and whatever. Like I was, living my best life. And yet the gift that became evident to me when I had that real big insight to drop that and to come and step into, accept the invitation to come and do this work, is that even if you think life is good, life can be better. I know maybe there's some people that are even looking at the opportunity to move into working to themselves and they're like, well, I'm comfortable. I've got my 401k and I've got my dental plan. And yeah, but at least see if there's a possibility of something better. So often I feel, I don't remember who said this. Some people only reach the moon because they didn't shoot for the stars or something like that. It's like...
Well, yeah, now it's shoot for the stars and at least shoot for the moon. Yeah, I don't know. Shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars. We'll edit in the right thing later.
Right thing. But the fact is that people aren't reaching their full potential because they're not even going for their full potential. They're settling. And settling doesn't have to look like life is crap. I was settling for a very good life, but there might be something more available if you just open up to exploring.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, the fact is that some people only reach the moon because they didn't shoot for the stars. And yet there's so much more available to us than we could even conceive or even know is there. And we're saying, I've got my 401k, I've got my dental plan, I get my 2 weeks of vacation every year. I'm up for promotion. I'm going to get another $2,000 a month or whatever the thing is, or I'm going to get a 5% bump. And yet the opportunity to even just explore what might be available beyond that is a gift that far too many people don't take up.
Yeah. And, you talk a lot about dreaming. I mean, dream with Dan. Your listeners, your clients are dreamers, right? I mean, that's the goal. I was at a franchise conference in Orlando recently, and I got to speak to 150 or so people that do what I do. And we were in Walt Disney World, and I knew that Walt Disney was a huge dreamer. And I realized that Walt Disney's sort of famous now that he's long gone, his brainstorming technique all starts with being a dreamer. There's pieces that you have to be a realist and you have to be the critic as well, but doesn't it all start with a dream? And exactly what you're saying, people are not dreaming. They're at their corporate job, dental plan, this, that, 401k, and let me just retire when I get old and I don't feel like coming to work anymore, or when I turn 65.
And again, Lance, some people might do the exploration. They might see and realize, I'm actually quite comfortable and happy with my job, or I don't have the desire to go for more, and that's okay. But at least try it on first. At least try it on. And dreaming, at least see what's on your heart, because a lot of people are denying themselves the opportunity to actually tap in and see what's going on inside, because they are just settling for what's going on now. They're not dreaming. Right. And this isn't to say that everybody has to go off and be a multimillionaire or go and do this or have a second home in the Bahamas. That might not be what you desire, but until you open up and at least see what it is you desire through that dreaming process, you'll never know.
Right. So how do you get people? I know people come to you different ways. You have a huge Instagram presence, super active environment there. You have your own podcasts. You're a guest on podcasts like this. So how does it really work for you? What are you seeing these days from people? What are the most common things that you're seeing that people are stuck with? Because you said it just perfectly. I tell people all the time, if you're happy with your corporate job, you're truly happy. Maybe you don't explore, but why not explore? It's free. Working with me is free, at least to start with.
At least to start with. And even at the end, it's not even coming out of their pocket. Yeah. But the thing is, I think fear is the number one thing, I would say. And it's not even, I think, is it Marianne Williamson? Our fear is not that we're incapable. Our fear is we're more powerful than we could ever imagine. I know I've just butchered it, but I personally think that when we look at, let's go to the mind for a moment. The unconscious mind, its job, its role is to keep you safe. That's its job. Now, keeping you safe doesn't have an analytical function to it. It's just keep you safe, keep you safe, keep you safe, keep you safe, keep you safe. But one of the primary ways that it seeks to keep us safe is by keeping things the same. And so there are a lot of people who are being kept safe unconsciously. And the unconscious operates at 10,000 to 10 million times the speed of the conscious mind by keeping you in the same place. And we can experience that holding in the same place as fear of the unknown, fear of the known, fear of bigger. And that fear is stopping people even exploring. And that's when they get to the end of their life, and not even to the end of their life. Some people get to the midlife and then they end up having the midlife crisis when they realize, oh my God, I've been living a life that's not my own. I've spent the last 10, 15, 20 years chasing the picket fence and whatever, chasing this corporate ladder thing. And actually, I just want to be an artist. I interviewed a lady on my podcast yesterday. It was really funny. I didn't know who she was talking about at first, but there's a guy who wrote a TV show that I love called All American. It's about this kid from an underprivileged neighborhood that ends up playing American football for Beverly Hills High School and goes on this journey where he's going towards the NFL. And I knew it was based on a real story, but I got to meet the woman who's one of the characters from the TV show that I watched because she knows the guy. Anyway, long story short, he had spent all of his time chasing to be the top person on the field, gets to be the top person on the field, and realized that actually it was sapping him of his joy. He ended up stepping back to a lower position on the team, and then in his spare time being creative. And that creativity ended up being this TV show now that's giving this really motivational, positive story to millions of people all over the world. We have the opportunity to see something more if we explore something more. If we just keep beating ourselves up to play out the same story from fear, from whatever, we're going to end up never really experiencing the fullness. Imagine if he hadn't done that. Yeah, maybe he'd have more money, but he'd get to the end of his career and there'd be an emptiness. That untold story will be inside of him, like, what do they call them? Haunting him. That's the word. It'd be haunting him. And so many people are getting to midlife and being haunted because they're not at least giving it a try. And I believe fear is one of the driving factors of that.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I do on a daily basis with people is, and I think you do the same, you have to sort of check their mindset. Before a pilot gets in a plane, he's doing his checklist or her checklist. And isn't that the same thing for you? It is with me. I have to check their mindset. What is their mindset? What is their comfort zone? What is their risk tolerance? I mean, this is something you do every day. You have courses dedicated to this.
I mean, one of the things I encourage people to remember is that it's okay if your comfort zone is a bit lower, but until you've acknowledged where your comfort zone is, you're not in a position to make a conscious choice about whether you want to expand it or you want to stay the same place. So that pilot check for as an analogy is perfect, because I believe it's important to do that for yourself every day. I do that through journaling in the morning and through my affirmations and stuff I do at the beginning of the day. I do it checking in at the end of the day too, just checking where I'm at. Where am I going? What is it that I'm still excited about? What is it that I want to move towards? I mean, if I woke up tomorrow and I didn't want to do this stuff anymore, I wouldn't do it anymore. But I do want to do it, and I get the chance to choose to do that every day. And that mindset check is imperative, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to execute or experience anything that you don't have buy-in for at the mental level. And if you're not checking at what you're buying into at the mental level, you're not going to see what you're running towards. And that's why a lot of people end up procrastinating, self-sabotaging, not taking action, because they haven't actually checked to see whether their mind is actually bought in on it in the first place.
Yeah. So what do you do in your assessment when you start working with people, whether it's one of your many summits you're hosting virtually, or your live events, what are you seeing are the best ways to break through, or the best exercises or tips you can give people on helping them through the process to explore?
Well, the very first thing that we do is we want to, especially if I'm working with someone. So on the one-on-one coaching side, generally speaking, I do that. Someone will come and hang out with me in Cabo for the day or the weekend. We'll map what their goals are.
Who wants to go to Cabo and hang out?
Who wants to do that? We'll normally go and get a place up at Chileno Bay. We'll have some nice food, have some nice wine. We'll get into it because we want to identify where somebody really desires to go. And it sounds like a very cheesy, but you will be surprised how many people come to me with a goal that's not even really their goal. We just, pull at the seam a little bit and the whole thing falls apart. They're chasing after something because of ego or out of fear, or because they want to prove their mummy or daddy wrong, or they want to, stick it to the man, instead of actually putting all that time and energy and resourcefulness into something that they really, really, really want. Because when you're doing something that you really, really, really want, the amount of momentum, the amount of support that's behind that is magical. And it's really powerful and potent to get into the end goal. When you're doing these things because it's, you're doing it to prove somebody wrong or anything like that, there's just nothing behind it. It's empty. And even if you do achieve the goal, it becomes empty and meaningless at the end of the day. There's just nothing to it. And so I really encourage people, first and foremost, before I'd even take, the real money from people to come and hang out, it's let's do a session and see what you want. Then let's look at mapping your money DNA. We can probably talk about money DNA today, so that I can understand how best to serve you in getting you to what you want.
Yeah.
Because if I just come with some cookie cutter approach to, hi, Lance, yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this. How do I know that's going to work for you? How do I know that you're going to respond to that? How do I know that your unconscious mind is going to be able to buy in if we're speaking in that languaging? How do we know how to optimize this to make sure that you're motivated and that you're going to be able to apply the discipline to get to the end goal? So let's identify first and foremost with a micro session what your goals are, right? Then we want to map your money DNA. We'll do that in a 30 to 60 minute session. Then and only then do we go and do the deeper work, because we also need to see if we resonate, because my way is not going to be for everyone, right? And that's another thing as well. A lot of people are, just because somebody's famous or someone's got an award-winning program, their program might be amazing, but it might not be all that amazing for you.
Yep, absolutely. So with the Money DNA program, what does that entail? I mean, what is that process like? How long does that take? And is that always one-on-one, or are there group sessions?
Well, we do a workshop every probably 6 weeks or so, where we do like a high level in a group setting. We have been doing the boot camp live, where for 5 weeks we go into deep dive into all the 5 sessions, but we're actually going to be recording that to be evergreen now with some coaching sessions, just so we can scale it more and be able to serve more people with it. My schedule at the moment is just not really allowing me to be able to commit to 5-week blocks at a time.
I wonder why, Dan.
I wonder why. Because I don't work in December. I mean, we're recording this in August. I don't work in December. It's my son's mother's birthday, my birthday, my stepdaughter's birthday, my son's birthday, Christmas, New Year's. I just take off December. I've done that for a few years now. And then this year, I'm going to actually go with friends to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix mid-November. And then I've got another thing I'm doing. So I'm just going to stop working at the end of October.
Good idea.
For the year. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. But with regards to the Money DNA, if I'm doing a one-on-one deep dive, I could normally at least get a grasp on someone's money DNA in about 30 to 60 minutes. I can get a grasp.
And what do you see the blocks are most often? Because you're working with people. I mean, obviously there's an investment in yourself to work with you one-on-one. You have a lot of other, courses and things, and there's plenty of freebies out there so people can get a taste for what you do. But generally speaking, what are the biggest blocks that you find that people have, whether they have $30,000 in the bank or less than that, or $3 million in the bank? What are these blocks that most people seem to have these days?
I think one of the biggest blocks is a misunderstanding or a disempowering perspective on what abundance is, and the role that the different things that we bring into the abundance equation play. So I generally find people come to me in one of two camps. They've got lots of money, whether they're comfortably doing 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, or they've not really got the money sorted, but maybe they've got an abundance of great relationships, great connection. Maybe they've got, they know what their purpose is. And
Dan,
break down to the middle.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Break down abundance for our listeners, because I know of you talking about abundance a lot, but some people just don't understand what is abundance all about, essentially. What does that mean? Because some people are like, I just want to be my own boss. I hate my boss now. I want to be my own boss. I have to have my own business. And the rest maybe isn't as spiritual, if you will.
So for me, abundance is a really simple phrase. It's all of my needs being met with sufficient overflow in those needs being met for me to be able to be of contribution to others without thinking about my needs not being met. But, and again, this is the thing I was talking about a second ago. Some people think I'm just talking about money. I'm not. Money's one aspect of it. Again, there are people who've got a lot of money who are not very abundant at all. Why? Because they've got money, but their health is shot to bits. They're burnt out. They've got no connection with their family. They've got no connection with themselves. They're not doing something that's purposeful for them. They're empty at the end of the day, or their health is whatever. And at the same time, you've got people who have got great connections to their family, great connection to purpose, but they don't even have the resources to meet their day-to-day needs. So I really want to bring everyone to the middle where they understand that money, health, relationships, connection, purpose, and meaning, all of these things, abundance is a multifaceted, multidimensional thing that encompasses all of these things. And I don't feel that abundance can exist truly if any of these things are lacking. And so my mission is to bring people into full expression of abundance in all forms.
I love it. I love it. And that's the thing that some people, as you're saying, they don't make that connection initially, and maybe the epiphany moment happens because of you. So let me ask you a true or false question.
Okay.
Maybe it's too early in our session here to get to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. I'm going to take the chance.
Shoot.
True or false? Can anyone own their own business?
Anyone can own their own business, but can anyone do so successfully? That's the nub.
Got it.
Right.
So how do you know when you're speaking with someone that says, Dan, I've suffered in this fashion. I've worked too many hours. I never liked my boss. I don't know if it's me, if it's the boss. I feel like I should have my own business, whether I start my own concept because I'm good at this, and this. Or you send me to your friend Lance to talk about franchise opportunities. I know there's a lot of different industries there. What do you say to that individual? How do you determine what they're capable of and ready for, ready to be accepting of, so to speak?
Well, first of all, we need to change the dynamic away from what I'm running away from and what am I running towards and why. Because if I send somebody to you that just hates their job, they don't know what they're running towards. They're not even going to have enough clarity to tell you what they need anyway. It's going to be 6 months before they can even have a conversation of any meaning and substance, or going through 20 million different opportunities to see what's for them. And so, much like the people who have come across to you from me, they know what they're looking for. Are they looking for time freedom? Are they just looking for some money in the bank? Are they passionate about something? What is it that's driving you? Because if you're just being driven away from something, that's a repellent energy. And repellent energy is not going to be able to call in success. I can't push and pull at the same time. And so we want to look at, what am I moving towards? What am I seeking to create? What do I want to be a part of? Then and only then can we act with clarity to really create something new that's going to work.
Yep. I love it. So how do you do a lot of, you help people with finance all the time. So you remove what some people might perceive as one of the biggest obstacles, because some people think they're ready for more and they're like, oh, I have 2 kids and the plan for college or plan for this or that. I'm not going to I'm never going to save enough money. How do I do this? So you help people through that process and plan for that.
Yeah, because people think, much to the point where I said, abundance is only one dimensional, but Dad, you only speak about money. You've got money game, money DNA, blah, blah. That's because that's the biggest story people tell themselves.
Yes.
It's not the most important thing, but it's the biggest story that we hear people talk about. It's got the most charge when it comes to that. People don't have the same charge about abundance relationships that they do about abundance with money. And so that ends up being the place where all of the negative energy, all the negative charge, all the anxiety, all of the stories tends to hide. And also the plus point is, if I say to you, hey, Lance, we're going to increase the abundance of your health, we can track that. I'm going to say, let's track the abundance of your joy or your happiness. We can't measure that, but we can measure it with money. If I say, hey, I'm going to come to my Micro to Millions program, we're going to get you to 6 figures, we're going to get you 7 figures, we're going to get you to 8 figures. Come and spend the weekend with me. We're going to get to this goal. We get there or we don't. I can't make an excuse and say, oh, sorry, it's still in the ethers. We're waiting for it to manifest. It showed up or it didn't, right? And once we've executed and gotten that success in that area, then because abundance is abundance, we can take it and then start to apply those principles to our health, to our connections, to our relationships. But let's have a very measurable thing that's going to give us more resources to be able to do other things too. It's going to give us more freedom, more breathing space, right? To be able to go and play in other sandboxes too.
Love it. Love it. So you have a beautiful family. You have an amazing life. You certainly live an abundant life. You practice what you preach. What's next on the horizon? You still have a jam-packed 2022. I know 2023 is probably getting full for you.
It's already getting full, yeah. It's already getting full. Yeah, I mean, film is a big thing right now, only because, there's a lot of noise, a lot of people right now who are seeking to come into this space to serve others, which is great. I love it. I love that so many people are making the decision to help others. But in order to create differentiation and space, I was looking for something, something a bit different. So I got my first documentary, Manifest Nation, and you can check that out, manifestnationfilm.com. Of course, you're on the credits for that, Mr. G.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Got my book, Stepping Beyond Intention, is being re-released under Simon & Schuster's imprint. Looking at that re-release, we've got a current January date at the moment for them to re-release that book. We've just finished the line edits, looking at the book covers and stuff like that. So really excited about that. But yeah, I think film, getting the book re-released, got some time off, like I said, got the Grand Prix this year, then December off, getting back into retreats. Haven't done retreat for a long time, doing one in Greece at the end of September.
I saw that. Is that Santorini?
Yeah, going to Santorini. I'm co-facilitating someone else's retreat, but definitely next year looking at getting some retreats done. I'm going back to Richard Branson's private island in March. And there's another one, there's another island not too far away from there that I'm going to go and scout to look at for maybe doing my own retreat next year as well.
Love it. So that was what, Necker Island?
Yeah, Necker Island. And go back
so what was the Richard Branson trip about this year to Necker Island? What was the lessons learned there?
Oh yeah, I was
besides the networking and all that.
Yeah, I'm in a mastermind called Maverick 1000. Shout out to Sophia and Yannick. It's all 7-figure plus entrepreneurs that are not just 7 figures. It's impact, fun, and contribution. They're the key values for the mastermind. So yeah, we meet on Necker once a year as one of the annual events that we have.
I love it. So what tips and advice do you have that we didn't already cover? I mean, look, I have notes. I have more notes on you than probably any other guest. Just your book, Stepping Beyond Intention. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that. And you talk my interpretation of the fear you mentioned earlier. And I talk to people all the time that, quite honestly, they're not ready. They make excuses for themselves as to why they can't do certain things. And I, explain to them how franchising can be very safe when I find them the right brand for them. Mm-hmm. And based on their mindset, skill set, and life experiences. But stepping beyond intention, if I do this, so let's fill in the blank. If I buy a franchise or I buy a business or I invest in a business, number one, what's the worst thing that can happen? Right? What's the worst thing? You want to talk a little bit about what's the best thing that can happen is the next question. And the third, ultimately, what's really most likely to happen? How did this talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so this is a question that a coach that I attended an event of once, he posed this as like a really powerful way just to get out of the monkey mind and just to see things with clarity. Because so often our mind runs off to the worst that can happen without even actually analyzing what the worst is that can happen. Yes. And we start having this emotional response to what the worst is that could happen that isn't even possible as the worst that could happen. Yep. We go into this fight or flight, fear-based response when actually the worst that can happen is You lose some money. Okay. Do you die? No. Are you going to be on the street? No. You're going to be bankrupt? No. Probably the worst that's going to happen is maybe you have a bit of a hard time for a little bit starting a business. Is that normal? Yeah, it's kind of normal. So is that even the worst that can happen? No, it's actually quite a normal course of events. Does it then require the fear-based response that you're generating? No, it doesn't. And so once we can just shine a light of awareness on it, again, it just dissipates the unconscious monkey mind running off. What's the best that can happen? Sometimes we haven't even looked at what the best that can happen. I mean, you've shared stories and you've got someone that exited one of their things for 60 million after like a couple of years or something that didn't even know anything about the business.
$60 million. It was several years later, but yeah.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't matter. Most people work for 50 years just to get a few grand a month of a pension. To spend a couple of years putting you back into doing a business that you can have a 60 million, like an multi-8-figure exit on. That's yummy.
And you didn't have to even create the concept. It was already there for you.
The template was there. You just had to
followed the process.
Follow the process. That is the best that can happen. Have we even explored what the best that can happen is? Many times, no. We're so caught up on fear about an imaginary worst that could happen. And the truth is that the most likely thing is somewhere in the middle. You're going to have some ups, you're going to have some downs. And if you know what these things are, you can resource yourself. Okay, what's the most likely thing that can happen? Up and down. Okay, can I get the right support? They're working with you. They're going to have someone that's holding their hand, who's going to guide them to they're going to be in the right thing for them, that they're going to have the right resources and support.
It's
maybe I need to do something. It's just once you bring the light, it's a lot of a different situation.
It's so funny how you're saying this, because just the other day I had somebody say to me, well, I don't know if that'll be successful in my area. And I said, and I pointed them to the franchise disclosure document, which every franchise produces. It's required by the federal government, the Federal Trade Commission. And the average franchisee of that brand did about 3.5 million in revenue. So I said to them, are you going to be average? And they said, no, I'm going to be better than average, because I'm always better than average. I said, fantastic. Then you're going to do more than 3.5 million in revenue. And they're like, oh. So there you have it. There's no mystery in that. You just have to trust the process and follow the system, and you will get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, so many of us, we get lost and we don't explore that fully to see that that's what the case is.
So where does the magic happen in your business? What are the outcomes? I mean, I can imagine the outcomes where people, and I know, and I've watched you, we've known each other for several years now, but what are those outcomes? Obviously, you mentioned health, you mentioned wealth, you mentioned relationships. These are the things, whether we realize it or not, that really affect us greatly. And I love the way you sum that up. That's our abundance. And some people are motivated differently. But what are those outcomes that you've seen that maybe sometimes you didn't even expect? Is it that somebody's job is they stay at their job, they're not looking for a business, but now all of a sudden they have a relationship with a loved one that they haven't had in a while, inspired by you? I mean, tell me some of those things.
Yeah, there was a woman that came into the program, and it was really funny that she was living in Asia. She was Mexican, lived in Asia, spent a lot of time in London, and she really wanted to find love, but she was really fearful about the love showing up. She had her career, and we did some work, and this is smack bang in the middle of the pandemic. So, she was feeling really lonely, smack bang in the middle of the pandemic, and we did some work, and I just got to stop thinking about the relationship stuff and just to think about getting a healthy relationship with herself, looking at relationship to masculine. And that ended up improving her financial situation. She ended up getting like 2 promotions plus stock options and finding love all within a short period of time. But it's because everything's connected. We've seen this time and time again, people that have health conditions, and I'm making no promises as to, the magic that can happen when you do this work, but the underlying root thing is connected to multiple areas. whether it's how I look after myself because of how I feel about myself, which is expressed in how I deal with money. And then I can help myself. We've seen people with, really strange health conditions that drastically improve just because I think it's said only 10% of health conditions are actually directly related to what's going on with our health. A lot of it's actually what's going on in our mind. And when we can start to use something to shift what's going on in our mind, it can lead to shifts that change other areas of our life also.
Love it. Love it. Well, obviously you enjoy the heck out of what you do. You got a busy rest of 2022. And so final tips, words of wisdom for anyone that might be into entrepreneurship and looking at opportunities and they're not sure. What do you think?
Really get clear on what you're doing it for. Number one. I'm not saying go and find your purpose. Drop that big question. Just what am I doing this for? Do I want freedom? Do I want some extra money? Do I want more breathing space? But make it something that you're moving towards. That's number one. And number two, get the right support. Don't write things off because you've got stories about them. Like we've been saying, a lot of people have got fears about franchising as an option, when actually it's one of the most powerful ways to get into business, because you've got all the learning curve that you get to cut. You've got all of the formulation and structuring and testing and packaging up and all of the investment in getting something going, and you get to ride somebody's coattails. But not all franchises create equally, and not all of us show up the same as well. So get the right support, but certainly understand why. Get yourself some support with this, with the mindset, with the emotional resilience to deal with the entrepreneurial journey, and just take some action.
Love it. Perfect way to end for today. Part one of multiple sessions, I'm sure.
100%. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Dan. You're awesome. Always good to see you, my friend, and we'll talk soon. Buddy. 100%. Have a great day.
And you.
Bye. Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.